We hold the space for you, the futurists, the foresight practitioners, the researchers, the storytellers, really everyone who futures as a verb, all year round, every month for 75 minutes, so you can ask your questions, enjoy live music and mindfulness, and connect with one another. Our topic today is the future of work. And we have a big question. Can we reimagine the career ladder? We will discuss with our guests why we have to rethink the education, career, retirement path that we're also familiar with, how to build a truly inclusive, multi-generational workforce, and maybe, is there a new definition of work? We'll find out today. Dubai Future Horizons, of course, is a virtual path itself. It's all leading up to November 19th and 20th, when the world's largest gathering of futurists is happening at the Dubai Museum of the Future, all run by the Dubai Future Foundation. And I'm so excited already for what's coming in a few months. And the curator of the forum is here, back here on Horizons, to say hi, to take us into today's topic, Iman Al-Khari. Iman, so good to have you back. How are you?
Thanks for having me, Felix. I'm always delighted to be here. Inside joke, everyone. All good.
I heard the irony. Don't
Yes,
worry, you don't have to explain that it's a joke. But we're happy to have you back here in the middle of a gazillion of meetings to prepare this big event.
Yes,
And
we are.
reimagining the career ladder, of course, I have to put this to you. Do you want your career to end at any point? And if so, when? Maybe right now?
So on days like today, I realize Mary's on this call, so slightly awkward for me. But anyways, on days like today, I wouldn't mind an end, if I'm honest, where I'm sort of running around like a headless chicken. And that's kind of why I was laughing earlier. There are days where I feel like, we don't make enough of a concerted effort to just stop and breathe and take a break and actually appreciate where we work and what we do. And, speaking about a future definition of work, I always ask myself, like, what is my current definition of work? As in today, my job, is it just a job, or is it really a journey to where I want to get to eventually? So as everything we do here at the Dubai Future Foundation, a lot of what we do is about rethinking, reimagining, repositioning definitions and the kind of the status quo for a lot of these things, including work.
I mean, we have something coming up for you, Iman, and I know this. There's a moment of mindfulness coming up right away. So I hope you can use that, take advantage of it. But allow me one more question. The registration is open for the Dubai Future Forum. The link was just shared in the chat, dubaifutureforum.com. How are you actually going to bring today's topic to the forum this year? What is the future of work going to look like at the Dubai Future Forum?
So as you might know, and as maybe some other people here as well know, we've got 4 or 5 themes this year at the Dubai Future Forum, one of them being transforming humanity. Transforming humanity is really thinking about, big picture thinking, kind of revolutionizing status quo. Like if we were to kind of get rid of all the definitions, everything that we take for granted these days, including this notion of work and career, what would that mean? What would that look like? What can we imagine? So one of the sessions that we're looking at hosting this year in that track is around the value of work and actually purpose of humanity, purpose of us here on planet Earth. What is our purpose? And with everything that's happening with AI and technology, if our real purpose isn't to kind of make money and to have jobs, and what is our purpose in life? And how can we reimagine what work really means, and what we will take as pleasure, and what we will take as actually transforming the way that we imagine these sort of systems and processes.
Wow. Okay. You love big questions, and I'm excited to see how you're going to answer that at the forum. Iman, thank you so much for being here. Headless chicken is a great metaphor when it comes to the career ladder for many of us. Don't run around right now. Please stay with us. We're so happy to have you. And let's welcome our speakers from Cairo. I would like to welcome the UNICEF Youth Foresight Fellow and recent Economics and Management graduate from the University of London, Rawan Elbendary. Rawan, it's so good to have you with us. How are you?
Thank you. Thank you. Hope all can hear me well. All is good, and very happy to be with all of you here today. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Rawan. We're excited to have you.
doing.
That's going to be listened to in just a second. I would just like to welcome your fellow co-speakers from Dubai. Please welcome the lead for talent acquisition. Iman was already mentioning, her colleague is in the room today. And the lead for talent acquisition and performance management, such an interesting role to talk to about today's topic at the Dubai Future Foundation and the Museum of the Future. She's rocking it. Mary, Kaddah, Mary, so good to have you with us. Welcome to Horizons.
Hi, good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Thank you so much for having me here. I'm really glad to be here today with all of you.
Thank you. And from Paris, please welcome the senior economist at the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. I Googled that. Short OECD, an organization with 38 member countries where she currently leads the work on aging and employment policies. Hi, Shruti Singh. Hi, Shruti. Welcome to Horizons.
Hi, Felix. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon from Paris. I'm really delighted to be here and really looking forward to the discussions with all of you. And thanks for the great music, by the way, at the beginning of it. I feel relaxed. I feel good. Thank you.
You look so official, may I say that? You basically looked like the head of OECD, which you will be one day. Your boss didn't hear that. Now let's get everybody on stage. We will switch the spotlights off for a second because we want to see all of you. That's right. We want to crash Zoom together. Rawan just said it. Hi to everyone. We want to hear from you. And it's also a quick tech check for the breakouts later. So wherever you are right now, switch your microphone on, click that mute button, and switch your camera on if it's comfortable, and say hi in your favorite language to each other, to our guests today. Be loud, don't be shy. Let's crash Zoom together. Hello, Horizons. How are you?
Hi, everybody.
Hello.
Thank you for being here with us today. Shruti, I'm actually going to start with you and a community question that you suggested. One of those fun questions that come up when you talk to a researcher that specialized in aging. Shruti wanted to know from all of you, until what age do you want to work? Sounds like such a simple question. It is not. So while you all can respond via Menti, we're going to share the link in the chat in just a second and also put the screen share up for you so you scan the QR code with your phone and can respond to this big question. I'm going to ask you, Shruti, why do you want to know that? Why do you want to know from everyone in the room until what age they want to work?
Well, two reasons, Felix. The first one being that people actually often underestimate how long they're going to be living. I mean, you introduced in your introduction the fact that we're aging. The world is aging very fast. But the flip side to that, or the positive side to that, is actually that's a result of us living longer. So in fact, on average across the OECD countries, today we can expect to live up to the age of 81, which is about 10 years more than we were about 20, 30 years ago. So it's a huge increase in our life expectancy. Women tend to live on average at least 5 years longer than men, with the average being up to around 78-year-old. So, and there's also huge country differences. We know that in Japan, for instance, life expectancy is the highest, on average is 84 years, and the lowest being in 75 in Mexico. And I think we have a host of countries here today for which the life expectancy is going to be different. But on the whole, we're actually all living longer. Now, what does that mean? People, first of all, underestimate how long they're going to live, which means they actually don't plan their careers or their working lives and the way they learn or their lifelong learning that actually detriments them in later ages. So especially, again, I think for women, I would say, who already have very interrupted careers. You know, if you have a child, you take a break from your workplace, your father, your mother gets sick, your women are disproportionately taking the burden of caregiving responsibilities, as we know. So you stop working. And so you already have this disadvantage where you're coming in and out of the labor market. And when you suddenly find yourself in old age at the age of 65 or 70, when you think you're going to retire, that's actually your career history is going to have an impact on the way you live and the quality of your retirement. And I think the interesting part there is that actually that the length of retirement that people used to think, I might live up to 75, but in fact, we're living much longer. So you end up experiencing all these problems because you just haven't planned and managed your careers and the way you're going to learn, including in your retirement, because you're just not aware how long you're going to be living for and how long you're going to be working for. That's one thing. And the second reason I'd wanted to ask this question was, we see a lot of, at least in the media, there's a lot of hype around generational differences that, Gen Z wants more flexibility and they're not serious about their work. They want to work less compared to the baby boomers that had a hard life and they actually wanted to make it, they want to buy the house. So I was just curious whether actually, since we have such a huge variety of age groups here, I wanted to see and test some of those notions, the generational differences and the attitudes towards work. So yeah, these are the two reasons I wanted to really put the question forward, and excited about the answer.
Very, very well said. What's your answer, Shruti? What number would you put in? I think Wen was actually saying in the chat, why max is only 90? I want to choose 100. So what would be yours?
Yeah, I think the answer is pretty much that, as long as I'm fit and healthy, I want to have an engaged life, engaged in terms of my work,
Wait, you dodged the question. What's your number?
as long as I can. So if I'm lucky enough and I live up to 100 and something, then yes, why not? I mean, I don't think I have a precise number. So the point is, if we can remain fit, and I think that's an important caveat to note, because not everybody can work long. So I think it's a serious point. And there are huge inequalities, between nations, by skill level, by gender, etc. And not everybody can work as long as, one think, or some of the policies, for instance, retirement, the pension age is designed in a way, assuming sometimes that everybody can work up until the age of 67. And I think we have to be very mindful of that, that people who are capable and can work.
Isabel just put it in the chat, I'm not going to retire. I think it's an outdated concept. And I think you can also read in the chat that, there is a lot of complex responses to this question. And I think that's also why it's so amazing that we really asked for a number, because it forces you to be very specific. Mary, may I ask you, what would be your number?
So my number would be 95. So life expectancy within my family is quite late on my dad's side. So my grandparents have lived to over 100. My dad, bless him, is 85. So I would like to work until 95 if I'm able to live that long. But I would say the intensity and the type of work that I would do would be different between different stages of life. So I think this will go into a bit more detail once we talk about the corporate ladder and reimagining it. But I would like to continue to be engaged mentally and physically and continue to learn as I grow and become older, and also contribute to the future generations and the community. I think one of the people, Mustafa, put in a comment that he would like to work as long as he continues to contribute to the community. And I do agree with that statement. But different types of work, maybe not at the level that we're working in right now, but, still contributing.
Yes, and I think Charles and others are also chiming in on that, right? There's a difference between work and job. And giving to the community is, I think, one of the things that we are going to redefine work as in this call. Rawan, you're 24. I'm going to share your age here because I'm so jealous. And you recently graduated. When you hear what Shruti and Mary are saying, how does that match with your own future of work? What do you envision for yourself as your future?
Oh my God, thank you so much for that question. And you don't need to be jealous. Age is just a number, I always say that. So I guess the future of work in Egypt has as my research topic as part of my fellowship with Anushanti. So I was the one always asking young people as well, what is your preferred future of work? But obviously now I have to, it's my turn to answer this one. And I think with the economic outlook in Egypt, and every young person wondering where to go and which career path to take, and all the rumors around Gen Z, as Shruti mentioned, like not being really willing to work. I think I can have two visions of work, like one that is personal, maybe reflects more of me, and one that is collective and reflects more of the visions of young people that I've worked with. So I guess I would say, like, if you allow me to elaborate, I'm gonna talk for
Please.
a bit of time. Thank you. So it's like more of a flexible, inclusive environment that again respects me as a human, and that looks at me not just as an economic agent, but as a whole person who's valued for what they bring in, not just economically, but also in a human level. And I love the fact that we can have a new model of work that is custom made and individually designed to cater for the different needs of different humans, and to make sure that inequality is also not widened, but actually lessened, where women do not have to sacrifice their roles as mothers, but actually where the blessing of motherhood adds to women and doesn't take from them. A world where impact is not measured by the roles you occupied or the prestigious institutions you have joined, but actually the real impact of what you have done on the life of others, including those intangible ones, as Mustafa said, like, I would like to live as long as I can give back to my community. And I think this is such a very important concept that we need to always remind ourselves of. Yeah, please go on.
Yeah, I love that. And maybe there's even a way to rename work impact and measure it completely
100%.
differently.
We need, exactly, definitely, and new measurements for work and impact, and how we can actually do measure the intangible. Can we do that? I think it's a good question to have, and nice reflections. If anyone would like to just contribute over the chat, that would be amazing.
Wen just put in the chat, maybe we can break that 20, 30 years of formal retirement into small halves or one to tier mini retirements. And I think this leads us back to Shruti to maybe set the stage a bit on today's topic, because in the questions submitted by our community leading up to today, you all saw that when you signed up for the Zoom, you could ask questions, and many of you challenged the concept, the question of our session, the word career ladder. Sabrina from Calgary, for instance, she asked, how much are we limiting ourselves just by using that term career ladder? Kirsten from Copenhagen said, what if there's no ladder to climb, people? And what if this is no longer an aspiration at all? So Shruti, I think the ladder, my generation, I'm 42, very much still in front of my eyes and in front of the eyes of my peers. The ladder is education, work, retirement, boom. That's what I grew up with and many others did. So Shruti, please help us or help me understand why I'm completely outdated. Please help me understand why your research suggests reimagining that ladder.
Okay, Felix, I mean, I think that's a fantastic question, right? That is of interest to economists, to the OECD, what do actually several trends, including rapid population aging, which is not happening in isolation. We have the digital transformation. We have the green transition. There's globalization, and so in fact, there's the world of work, especially, is seeing it's kind of ever changing, but I think I would say more than ever before, which has all these trends have has profound implications on the traditional career paths, as you put it, study, getting a job, and then retiring. So this traditional, conventional way of thinking about our career is going to be changed or affected enormously by these three trends. Now, how so? Let me just go through what's the impact of all this on the way we think and plan our careers over the life cycle, which are getting longer. Well, the first one, as I mentioned before, that we are actually just living longer. On average, the life expectancy is around 81. Now, what does that mean? I mean, it's very simple. We're living longer. And so we're expected to work longer, not just sort of because it's important. I mean, it's in terms of the fiscal sustainability of healthcare costs that aging is going to bring, the long-term care cost. So there's that economic imperative, but I think there's that human side too, that actually the job that I had at the age of 25, or what Rawan is doing right now, is no longer going to fit what she wants by the time she's 50. or even earlier. And so it's about taking into account people's choices and their preferences, which are going to be changing as we get old, and also with personal circumstances. At the age of 60, I might not actually have the same health as I did when I was 25, and that's going to have an impact on actually the type of work and the way I work. So that's one thing. And I think actually there's a lot of interesting evidence just after the COVID-19 aftermath, where we saw a lot of people saying and quitting. I mean, job quits were the highest after COVID-19 because people had the time to think and rethink their careers. Actually, I've realized I don't like my job. I'm bored in my job. I'm not productive in my job. And so a lot of evidence that came out that actually people's preferences really matter. And I think those preferences change over the life cycle. So that's going to be, one reason where we need to move away from this study, work, and retirement. The second big thing is the transition to digitalization and artificial intelligence. I mean, this is enormous. So we know, at least from the OECD's work, for instance, that we're showing that around 14% of jobs are at risk of completely being automated, which means people just will be losing their jobs. But actually more than that, what's worrying is that about 32% will undergo significant changes in their tasks. So small bits of your job will change. Now, well, what does that mean? It means that you have no choice but to rethink about new careers or new jobs, because the current one you had is no longer there because of artificial intelligence or digital transition. So many people will be just simply forced into new careers for, let's put it simply. The third one is, I think, around the caregiving economy, which is growing enormously with aging. And I think Rawan mentioned that again, as a woman, you want time for your to take care, for your children, to take care of them.
And as a man too.
And for men too, and also for your growing aging parents. So again, I think this frequent periods of in and out of the labor market where you're hopping out because, either for your own health or caregiving responsibilities, or making time for actually upskilling and reskilling. Because I think for this to successfully happen, for this new model, which is going to be a lot more fluid, one thing that's actually imperative or at the heart of it is actually that people would be allowed to take time off, to upskill, reskill, make sure that lifelong learning concept becomes real. Because if that doesn't happen, then we actually jeopardize or risk people taking on some of the job opportunities or the benefits, let's say, that AI or the transition to green and the digital economy can bring to so many of us. And so I think the heart of it's really the idea that you are going to be able to, learn throughout your careers. And so I think all these trends, in a nutshell to say, are actually interrupting our careers. In fact, there's a lot of evidence, again, from the OECD showing that on average, 1 in 10 workers, are changing, what we call job mobility, changing job to job, which has the rate of which has increased over time. And the job tenure, by which I mean the length of time that you spent with a specific employer, that's also reducing. So all these signs, data is telling us actually careers are becoming more frequent. Take the gig economy, the platform economy. That's going to again make careers very fluid. So I think we're in influx at the moment. Things are unfolding in front of us, and I think it's really the discussion at the OECD much more about how do we actually support these transitions, support the new way of work, and I think that's where the challenge actually lies.
Interesting. So it's our age. We get older, it's digitalization, or AI as we now call it. And it's the third thing you said are these kind of like fiscal needs almost, right? That the governments and states, that the systems that humans work in and pay taxes for, they're changing too because of labor forces are changing. So there's these three big factors. And now let's get to the practical solutions. By the way, challenging the metaphor career ladder, when just put in the chat. As a 25-year-old, I feel like I'm experiencing something more like a career spaghetti rather than a ladder. I think that's a pretty cool metaphor. Mary, let's talk to the HR specialist because the Global 50 report from Dubai Future Foundation brought up one opportunity. It ties back into what was shared in the chat earlier. maybe there's something like pensions for the young and internships for the elderly. Maybe there are different scenarios when we think about how people can go through their work lives entirely. So you're an HR leader, Mary, for hundreds of employees at Dubai Future Foundation and Museum of the Future yourself. You have to make these decisions every day. You have to help people on their career paths, whether it's a ladder or a spaghetti. So what initiatives are you specifically working on right now in your day-to-day to reimagine the workplace? We're, I guess, going from the far future of work now to the very near future and what's actually manageable and tangible here.
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you so much for that, Felix. I think most recently we've actually been working as a group from several private sector and public sector entities to really try and understand what the future of work looks like for both the younger generations, those of us who are mid-career, and also the older generations. I think if we look at us when we graduated, many of us don't really have any idea of what we want to do as a career. We kind of go to school, then we go to high school, then we go to university, and depending on the influence that parents have on what we major in university, we kind of focus on those. I personally graduated with a history and Spanish double major and had no idea what I wanted to do as a career, and somehow fell into talent acquisition and performance management. So I think we at the Dubai Future Foundation, one of the most important things we're working on is creating sort of a flexible internship program where we're enabling fresh graduates to have a rotation. You don't know what you don't know. So if you haven't worked in marketing, but you're really great at sort of communications and PR, having the ability to explore that passion maybe will kind of highlight a career strength of yours. So having that flexibility to let fresh graduates maybe do an internship within their area of expertise, but also explore their areas of interest or their areas of strength outside of their career role, core sort of degree or core focus is super important. And we're also looking at potentially how do we include the older our older generation into the workforce. So do we start part-time work? Do we allow them to kind of redevelop their skill set, similar to what Shruti said with the lifetime learning, and then reintroduce them into the workforce in a completely different career perspective that would allow them to kind of maintain their mental and physical well-being while also being engaged professionally. So these are some of the topics that we're grappling with and trying to introduce some initiatives.
So as a 40-plus-year-old, I could also do an internship at Dubai Future Foundation. Is that?
You can. We've actually had interns from all walks of life.
Future Forum team, yeah, Felix, in the Dubai Future Forum.
Okay. Aman, thank you. I am going to send my application today. But that's good to know because I think it points towards something that is being discussed all over the place, Mary, this notion of reverse mentoring, that, you know, I can learn more from Rawan in many ways, that Rawan can learn from me when it comes to facing especially the digital transformation that Shruti was referring to. So you're doing that as well.
Yes, and I think one thing to keep in mind is we used to be very limited in how we looked at talent. It used to be what was written on the CV and the experience. But post-COVID, we realized that people have so much talent and passion and skills outside of their 9-to-5. And we should be able to look at the person holistically and be, even as a talent professional, for me, I now want to look at my employees in a 360-degree angle, not necessarily what they do at work, but what they do at home. What are their passions and their hobbies? And then giving them that opportunity to actually explore it in the workplace and even move into that new career goal. So rather than hiring someone externally, we're really focusing on, let's say, marketing certain vacancies that we have and allowing our internal talent to basically interview for it, and not looking at their CVs and experience, but seeing how they tackle that role and giving them the opportunity to either do a rotation or an internship into it. And then if they do well, then that role is theirs. So even that internal flexibility. Please, Felix.
Mary, I'm like, hot topic, because we received questions about that leading up to the session. So I guess you can put this under the umbrella of skill-based
Skill-based hiring.
Skill-based hiring, skill-based careers, which is this huge buzzword. And we had several community members like Sanja from Croatia, Omran from the UAE, Daniel from Austria. They all submitted questions leading up to today's question, said, what is that skill-based job actually mean? Like, how do you even describe a skill-based job that you're looking for someone to apply? What are these magic skills that you're actually looking for when hiring? Can you give us maybe one example, Mary, of how that actually looks like?
Yeah, so I'll give you a very tangible example for the Museum of the Future. So when we were looking to hire our guest relations executives for the Museum of the Future, we wanted to be very innovative in our approach. We didn't want to screen CVs and only hire individuals who were in the service sector. We wanted to be inclusive and to look at individuals who are really passionate about the museum, about what the museum stood for, and who had this skill set. So with the guest relations executives, these are individuals who need to be storytellers. They need to bring the story of the museum to life and have people imagine what a potential future in 2071 could look like. In addition, they needed to really be great at providing an exceptional customer experience. They need to be well-spoken, be able to work very well in a team, warm and welcoming, right? And these are some characteristics that you will not see on a CV. So we worked with one of the companies called HireView. They were one of our partners, and we developed an assessment for the guest relations executive that was built upon the key skill sets that we were looking to assess for that role. So we posted the vacancy online. We had over 2,500 applications, and everyone got put into this HireView interview. And so we used the technology plus actually screening the videos and the answers that we got and shortlisting people based on their answers. So
and just to jump in here, HireView is a platform that would interview you automatically. You're talking to an AI first, is that right?
So it's a web-based platform. They use artificial intelligence, gamification, and facial recognition. And basically they have psychologists who help develop the questions. And so basically there's 6 questions that you have to answer, and you get 3 chances to answer those questions. And then the technology on video, and the technology assesses it. So we actually, along with the recommendation of the tech, we actually screened the videos as well. And shortlisted people based on their responses. And so we were able to hire individuals without looking at their CV or without seeing what their backgrounds were. And so the first time we learned what their employment history was at final round interviews when they brought their stories to life. So that enabled us to bring a whole diversified set of individuals, from fresh graduates all the way to individuals who are older than 50 years old, who were then reimagining their next career goal. And so that flexibility, that skills-based hiring was quite a success for us. And it also helped cut down on inherent biases. Of course, the tech, you have to take it with a grain of salt and be very cognizant of any potential biases that comes across. And HireView was fantastic in helping us kind of reformat the tech to meet our regional needs. But this was sort of one tangible success story where we did skills-based hiring.
Fantastic. And there's a few people in the chat who would actually like to apply with Dubai Future Foundation, I think based on what you shared, but also based on the fascinating work that you're doing. So maybe you or your colleagues can respond in the chat here to the folks that want to get in touch with you. And Shruti, I'm going to put this back to you, because now we just heard one example from Dubai and the UAE where, you know, it's very advanced. HireView is like one of these startups that are using AI and a lot of technology to sift through thousands of applications. But I'm sure there's other examples from around the world as well that don't have necessarily to do with AI and that are just there to create this multi-generational workforce. And they're just more inclusive than what we used to have seen. Valeria just shared in the chat, you know, its skills are great, but most companies are still selecting based on these like outdated models. So Shruti, as a researcher, can you give us a few examples, maybe 2 or 3 from governments, from institutions that have actually successfully reimagined how careers can start, how they can flourish. Maybe there's a few examples you can share with us from your research.
Thanks, Felix. I think, first of all, I want to say that we work very closely with governments. So our main sort of target group is working with governments, public policy, changing public policy in a way that's going to help people really thrive in their careers and and sort of well-being of societies. And so one message that has come across consistently from our work, I think, on that, which we often tell to governments across the world, is that actually policies that work, if you take a life cycle approach, if you take an age inclusive approach, those policies are the most effective ones, really. I mean, if you think about flexibility, for instance, take a young person, he or she wants a flexible job. You take somebody older, 50, they also want a flexible job. So actually, I think I want to first of all say there's lots of myths, a lot of misconceptions, by age, by different generations. And actually, when you look at the attitudes towards work and aspirations, and sort of, what you expect from your employers, that is actually pretty much consistent across all age groups. Across all ages, people want a job that pays well, that is flexible, that, gives you recognition, that allows you to grow. So I think with the slight exception of career progression, which of course changes a little bit, as you age, and then, younger individuals are naturally want to grow in their careers. Across all these different indicators, what you expect from your job is actually pretty much the same. So the bottom line is that if you can design policies in an age-inclusive way, that is going to be the most effective thing. The second point there is that I do want to say that a lot of the inequalities that often actually start in young ages, starting from childhood. And so if we can actually reduce inequalities, making sure that we give people the access to good quality education, making sure there's a smooth transition from sort of school to work, and so reducing inequalities early on. Of course, you can mitigate them. I think that when you're 50, you can mitigate them, but you can't, but then you've missed the boat. So you've got to start early. So I just want to set that out, I think, which is very important. This is the message that we, we are working with governments with. Now, when you are at the age of 45, I think a couple of examples that are really interesting that benefit everybody is an example from my home country, the UK, where actually the government has announced what they call an MOT. An MOT basically means, it stands for Ministry of Transport. And typically in UK, your car needs an annual check. You take your car to garage. And we have taken literally that concept and applied it to individuals, that actually workers get an MOT every year. And so
I need to go to a garage?
You don't go to a garage, thankfully, but you go to your employer. And the idea is that the employer, at the age of 45 or even 40, would sit down with you and do a bit of a 360 that Mary was, alluding to earlier. And that's really an opportunity to understand where your skills gaps are. Where do you want to go? What is your personal situation? What is your health conditions? What is your financial situation? How do you want to sort of, retire? What are your aspirations for retirement? It could be that you suddenly pick up that people want to leave earlier than you expected. And so that's your moment to actually help them, catch them early, to actually upskill and reskill. But I think this is not only benefiting the individual, but also the firm, because you can actually then pair them with different teams or different programs, reverse mentoring or job shadowing. It doesn't have to be expensive training. It can be, cheap tools like that firms use to actually spread that knowledge between different age groups, I would say. So they can't, and so there's a lot of good practice, that I think I would say large firms are doing, but the challenge is, of course, small and medium enterprises. But I mean, anyway, yeah.
We had a lot of chatter in the WhatsApp community about the countries that see a growing aging population. I'm thinking Singapore, Southeast Asia, Japan. Is there an example from that region as well, where you see something happening that you think is going to help reimagining the multi-generational workplace?
Well, I think Singapore is really interesting because they are actually sort of, promising this lifelong learning. So I think everybody actually has an access to a training account, and which is actually the same with what's happening in France, where I'm working. You get an individual learning account, and traditionally what would happen is you rely on training either from a public employment services, from the government, or you would go to your employer to get trained. But in fact, with the individual learning account, the onerous or responsibility is on the individual. So I have an account, I accumulate points, and I can do what I want when I want within reason. And of course, and I think that's important because this is, training is costly. And so you want to make sure that you're not wasting people's time, that it's in line with, where the jobs are going to be. So the challenge is that, you actually guide people in a way to choose the right kind of training that's actually going to lead to a job. And otherwise, we're wasting public money, we're wasting people's time. So there are sort of, good practices, or let's say good design of how these things are happening. So I love the individual learning account concept that really actually allows freedom.
It's a digital login basically through a website, and I have a individual point scale that then helps me to get into different trainings that are offered by the government.
Yeah, I think sort of, when I say points, it really means that typically what would also happen is that you get locked in with a particular employers, so the individual learning account does go back in time, but the issue was with new forms of work, you couldn't actually transport your years of experience somewhere else. And so what it does is it creates this, what we call the concept of portability. So these are portable accounts. So no matter who's the employer, I can actually sort of, keep this account and kind of accumulate these points over time. And it really gives me the freedom, and actually goes up to, I'm pretty sure it doesn't actually have an age limit. So you can actually keep this for quite a long time, well into sort of your retirement as well, that, allows you to sort of keep training to make sure that you also are socially engaged in your later ages. So anyway, so there are some, fantastic things that are, happening that are going to be.
Gerd just shared in the chat that in the Netherlands, this was also being tested and it didn't really work out. So it's interesting that I think the important thing is that it's happening, that the governments are trying things like that. Rawan, is there anything happening in Egypt right now where you say this is really something where I see things are changing, generations are being taken more seriously when it comes to a workplace that's inclusive and that fosters younger and caretakers and elderly in the same way?
Perfect. So I think I can talk about like a change in the private sector which happened a couple of years ago. Includes the introduction of paternity leave for fathers by some private companies, which I think is a change that is likely to be embraced and advocated for by young people. And it resonates very much with a comment that I received, or a young man raised during a Foresight workshop on the implication of parents' jobs and the number of hours parents spend at work and the influence of that on children and on the traits they do acquire. So I think there's this urgent need for well-being training and more emphasis on family values and self-compassion and self-connection. And this places a great responsibility on recruiters and regulators to establish work environments that does not only care for the well-being of employees or but also their families. I think there's also, as the Global 50 opportunity mentioned, there's this also appetite for intergenerational collaboration and knowledge sharing. And it was clearly, again, highlighted in one of the Foresight workshops by a young female participant, mentioning how in the public sector, we have this problem of employees retiring at the age of 60. Then we have to bring a new wave of young talents who still lack the skills and expertise. So why not just, instead of young people feeling lost and completely incompetent, why not enabling this environment of knowledge sharing, while like senior employees can spend time before their retirement teaching and mentoring young people. I can also speak from like my own personal experience as at UNICEF Egypt and UNICEF in Ashanti. And I think we're also more initiatives on meaningful youth engagement by the ministries in Egypt, by UNICEF Egypt, and definitely by UNICEF in Ashanti. So speaking of first of like my experience with UNICEF in Ashanti, like the whole fellowship was co-designed with fellows, senior fellows, and the YES team. There's again a huge commitment to meaningful youth engagement at every stage, like from program planning to program implementation. And I think this is very important. This led to the co-creation of a curriculum that's going to be incorporated into each year's, like each iteration of the fellowship. There's also like a global foresight game that allows for each one of the fellows will be working on localizing it, which again giving opportunity for local communities to apply foresight and to widen the access point, because there was this huge international team working on that. And then speaking about my interaction at the local context with UNICEF Egypt and one of the think tanks for the Prime Minister of Egypt, I was able to, for the first time, to give a foresight workshop to young people in Egypt, a group of researchers and the Information Decision Support Center, which is again a think tank for the Prime Minister. It was something delivered by young people for the first time. And I think it was very important because there's this appetite as well for young people to learn from each other. And I received that comment from young people during the workshop. So I think amplifying young people's voices and allowing them to have a seat at the table, making sure this has like a huge ripple effect, and you reap the outcomes and this like multiplies, and then just, things happen, and I'm happy to see that this is happening and being part of that. So yeah, just some thoughts.
Yes,
on
and
that.
some of the comments in the chat point towards the fact that everything we're discussing today is still happening within the systems that are at our disposal. What you said in the beginning, Rawan, about paternity leave in Egypt, I live in the United States, the only developed country that does not offer that still to this day. And I think there is limits because of the systems that we live in that we won't solve today. But I think it's very inspiring to hear from so many different countries. And I also think that
Exactly.
Sabrina just shared something interesting here in the chat, roadmap portable benefits, that there is so many initiatives already underway that are leading to a different way of looking at work versus jobs, which is also something that we discussed today. I think is very, very important to look at that differentiator. Mary, you brought one last question to the room today that I would like to use as the transition into our breakouts, which we offer for you for the coming 15 minutes. Mary, when we ask you, what would you like to know from the audience? You had this amazing question where you said, I want to know where people think in their region is something happening that is really leading the way in regards to an inclusive workplace. So we're going to put that question forward to everybody. Where do you think your region is leading in regards to an inclusive workplace? You can chime in through Menti just by clicking the link that our producer Liz is going to share in the chat in a second, or you pull out your phone and let us know, because we want to collect here a global mosaic of initiatives. Maybe you want to just name an initiative, maybe you want to write a phrase, a word, just let us know. And Mary, why are you asking that question that closes our conversation off today? Why would you want to know, Mary?
So I think it's, for me, learning from global best practices globally is super important, especially when it comes to creating an inclusive work environment and thinking about what the future of work looks like, and ensuring that we have answers from all different perspectives is super important, especially when we're thinking about Dubai. Our workforce is from all over the world, from all different walks of life, from all different ages. So when I'm thinking about the type of talent that I want to hire into the Dubai Future Foundation, I want to ensure that the initiatives that we're creating are inclusive. I will answer on behalf of the Dubai Future Foundation. So I think one place that we're leading is when it comes to entrepreneurship. And one of our key initiatives is this university entrepreneurship program, which we launched a couple of years ago. So we believe that creating a sense of entrepreneurship and this entrepreneurial drive should start very early on, not post-university, but in the first year of university. So we've created this program with different universities across Dubai, and basically, universities, students come up with business ideas, And the successful business ideas are then able to receive funding in combination with the Mohammed bin Rashid Innovation Fund. So this ability to really be able to encourage university students, 18, 19, 20-year-olds, to start to create new business ideas, to create their startups, potentially have those startups become future unicorns in the region and globally is super important. And this is where I feel we as Dubai and in the region are leading. So I look forward to seeing everybody's answers based on sort of all of the different countries that we have on the call today.
And they're flowing in significant growth in female employment in Saudi Arabia, respect for aging and the wisdom of experience in Asia, protected characteristics under Equality Act in the UK. So this is really an interesting mosaic that you're providing for us here. Thank you all very, very much. And Shruti, I'm going to leave it to you to comment what you're seeing here. Is this what the OECD is seeing? Is this mosaic one that makes you really hopeful, or what makes you hopeful when it comes to our topic of today and the next couple of years?
Well, I can certainly tell you there's a lot more happening than what we see in the screen. Some very similar initiatives that we know. I think there's a lot of sort of initiatives towards making that training is becoming more inclusive, that workplace flexibility is increasing through the paid maternity, paternity leave, paid training leave, and of course, making sure that you have good quality work. I think that's really important. A lot of interesting initiatives about improving job quality, which we know is key. That's also happening a lot. And of course, a lot of innovation around, that if you're doing gig work, this portability concept that actually taking into these new realities that people have multiple jobs, or the fact that they actually just have very short jobs. So how do you actually bring these people and make sure they're not penalized and not taken care by the social security system? So I think governments are actively thinking about that. Employers are actively thinking about that. And so I think this resonates with what we're seeing, but I think I would encourage you to also look at a lot of the work that we've done. There's lots of good examples. I hope you can find your own countries in the work that we've done. So please have a look at the OECD work that we've done in this area. There's also lots of data that you can tap into, which I hope will be useful for yourselves as individuals and as different sort of stakeholders today. I think we've had fascinating discussions. I've seen pop up, messages come up. We easily can take another 3 hours talking about this, right?
Yes.
You would agree with me, Felix?
Yeah, but looking at you as a sort of a head of state, as you look like in front of this beautiful OECD background, so it's so cool to talk to you as coming from an organization with 38 member states and seeing that the mosaic that you've just created here in a few seconds is represented all over the globe. And I also want to say that what I learned today is we have to talk about work and job differently. We have to talk about impact maybe instead of work. We have to look at the aging societies first when we want to know what's coming for most of us. And we also have to know that the spaghetti is maybe the future ladder. Hi, Aman. How was the session for you? Anything that you would like to share with us to close us out today? Is there any interesting thing you learned or you read or you recommend to watch, to listen to?
Yeah, so look, I think to Shruti's point, this is the sort of conversation that can go on for hours. I think what was really interesting and very telling, and maybe it's because of the day that I've had, but this notion of, wanting to live longer, wanting to live better, wanting to work more. I put 50 on the thing. I'm done. Get me to a beach, and I don't know what my purpose will be then. But I mean, it's about that point that it's about the question I asked at the beginning, right? Is what will be our purpose? And it's not that, we're going to have an answer after a 75-minute podcast.
Right.
But I think it was super interesting just to kind of hear various generations talk about the discussions, also talk about it from a policy perspective. And then the chat has been so active today. So it's been really interesting just to kind of get some of this feedback and get some of these thinking behind or the feelings or the sentiments that people have on the topic. I think has been really interesting. So I've been taking notes kind of rigorously here, talking predominantly around this notion of, how people actually feel about this topic. I think that for me has been really enlightening. So thank you, Felix.
Very emotional topic as well.
Yet again.
Yes, and very emotional topic, and thank you for saying that. And we are also taking notes. What you shared in the chat is not lost to us. We will condense that and share that through our newsletter. So many amazing contributions. Rawan, is there anything you would like to share to close us out? Anything you recommend to watch, to listen to, a signal that you came across, or a learning that you made today?
Yeah, thank you for having me. I think just elaborating on what the man said, the chat was full of ideas and very valuable insights from people like thinking about what we're actually talking about. And I guess the breakout room was also amazing. Met so many like brilliant people. I felt like the youngest and the most inexperienced. But yeah, it was so great listening to everyone and actually also reflecting on the things that were coming up in my workshops and how it resonates with actually some of the initiatives that are being taken by other countries and what we're talking about from the gig economy and how like youth feel like they're lost and confused and all of that. So I think it's a great it was great being here and listening to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Rawan. So glad to have you with us and shining a light on your generation. Shruti, you said it. We could be talking about this for years. We already went over time. Still, I don't want to close out without you. Thank you so much for sharing your research. We just shared your amazing AARP report in the chat. Is there anything from your end that you would like to leave us with today? Maybe a signal, something to watch, to listen to read, or a learning from today that you would like to share here before we part ways today?
I have been reading this interesting book lately by Andrew Scott. Maybe some of you have heard of him, which is called The Longevity Imperative. It's actually very nicely written. It's not too economic-y, so I think, pretty accessible to all of you. It puts it brilliantly. So I think for a light read, have a go at that. Of course, you've got tons of OECD work that I've mentioned already. And for me, I think it's, I see today as lifelong learning. So I'm really happy that I've done this. It's been, I learned a lot from all of you. So I think it's also, I think we learn in many different ways. And forums like these are, great. You exchange, you listen, you learn. So this is actually your training. So, so pat yourself on the back and be happy that you learned something new today. So thank you again.
This is the future of work in a way. Thank you, Shruti, and just found your book and put it in the chat, The Longevity Imperative. Thank you for sharing that signal. Many more signals to be shared in our WhatsApp community. You can join now, and I'm so honored to have been able to host this session. Thank you very much from our hearts at the Remote Daily team, proudly responsible for creating Dubai Future Horizons together with Dubai Future Foundation, all leading up to the Dubai Future Forum this November. Take care, everyone. Goodbye.